Let's get more on that from Lachlan Christie, Senior Research Analyst who watches the bank, South China Brokerage here in Hong Kong. Lachlan, long time no see. Good to see you once again.
It's good to be back.
Is this surprising at all? News that HSBC might be gunning for Republic. Is there anything surprising about this at all?
Well, it's interesting to have a name mentioned. It's been speculated for a while, particularly since they announced their results that they'd be expanding in the US. Coincide with their listing in the US, and obviously that's going to be a focus. They want to expand their exposure there. The fact that it was Republic New York was not necessarily a surprise, because that has been rumoured as a takeover target for a while, following their bond losses, Russian bond losses that they made last year.
What sort of real synergies does HSBC have with Republic New York?
Well, the areas of synergy, at the moment, they aren't strong. Republic New York is a private bank, really, a wealthy person's bank. HSBC, their current Marine Midland operations are retail-based. But the main point is that HSBC have said that an area of focus for their strategy in the future will be expanding their wealth management services, that is banking services for wealthy people. So it's a clear synergy there in terms of their strategy going forward.
Let's talk about HSBC's track record in the United States. I mean, Midland is not a bad performer now for HSBC, certainly holding up at a time when Asian earnings are being tested across the board. But HSBC got into Midland in the 80s, and it was not exactly a money spinner for them from the beginning. It certainly took them quite a while to turn them around.
That's right, yeah. But the point to make is that I think now their focus is to expand more in the US than it has been in previous times. Clearly their listing in New York is an area that they are looking to focus in terms of adding shareholder value. If they have more US banking assets, that's an advantage there. This expansion will increase perhaps their exposure to North American banking from about 13% to 18%, assuming they take over, say, a controlling stake in Republic New York. That's not huge, but it is a step in the right direction. And probably what's most important is that if they do take over at current prices, it shows they'll be paying 2.9 times book value for this bank, which is clearly way above what they've historically paid for any other bank. They've usually had a restriction at about 1.5 times book. Shows they're much more aggressive.
Lachlan, so you're saying that they're actually paying up for this acquisition. So does it make sense then for what they're trying to do right now in the U.S.?
Does it make sense? Yeah, I think it's good for them. Clearly, although bank valuations are high compared to other parts of the world, it's expensive to buy a bank in the US. But if you are going to be a global bank and you're going to try and enhance your shareholder value by making strict comparisons against other US global banks, then clearly expanding your banking exposure in the US is one way of doing it.
Certainly one argument would be that they could do better in Asia right now. I mean, they're being so hard-nosed about, I mean, at least reports say they're being very hard-nosed in Korea with the purchase of Seoul Bank. You know, they wanted full control of the bank. That's why they passed on Korea First Bank the first time around. Now, word has it the talks with Seoul Bank might be on the rocks for various reasons relating to valuation of bad loan books. And here they go paying 9 times book in the United States for a bank. I mean, what's wrong with it? They gone off the rocker or what?
Yeah, they'll probably be paying about 3 times book for the bank in the US. The Seoul Bank, of course, acquiring a bank in Asia at the moment, although full of opportunities, is also full of potential difficulties, and you can't expect a transaction, for instance, in Korea, which is really just opening up its banking sector for foreign involvement, to go ahead without any sort of lack of smoothness. So it's to be expected.
HSBC, I mean, was pretty much on the sidelines, you know, during the last few months when all these big, huge bank fusion mergers were happening. Do you think they got caught up in the bandwagon somewhat and kind of fretted, kind of worried that they'd be left in the dust, you know, if they let all these other institutions around the world tie up with each other and they just kept sitting on the sidelines?
It's partly that. I think what's clearly happened is that they have got a different strategy now, enhancing shareholder value, doubling, or at least doubling shareholder value over the next 5 years. Previously, as I've said, they've been a little bit reticent to go in and pay high prices to the banks. They've been more a value investor looking around for cheap deals. and that's why historically they've only never paid more than 1.5 times book. But now they've been obviously clearly more proactive.
Okay, Lachlan, just very quickly on the stock price, you were one of the first here in Hong Kong to call the stock price HSBC at 275. Right now we're sitting at 270, suspended. Assuming this deal goes through, assuming they do take over Republic, what would that do for your valuation of HSBC?
Well, I think although we don't know the details of the deal yet, and a lot depends on how they finance this and whether they issue shares in this acquisition or not. But you can easily see another 10% value added. Clearly, just in terms of increased exposure to US banks and their valuations. In addition, there is the other synergies coming through higher valuations applied to US banks, and if they are expanding in that region. So another 10%.
Thank you, Lachlan. No wonder they changed the name from Hong Kong Shanghai Bank to HSBC. Hong Kong Shanghai has less and less to do with the equation at the bank. Thanks, Lachlan. Lachlan Christie from South China Brokerage. Joining us talking about this possible acquisition by HSBC Holdings of Republic Bank of New York. Ray.